Hello, this is Tom, aka Jedion, here for Tabletop Tap Room, Star Frontiers Gamer, and we have another FanZine Friday, number 46, reviewing Frontier Explorer number 21. And this is a Starship issue of the Frontier Explorer, so you're going to get 3 deck plans in this particular issue. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to my subscribers. We are nearing in on 500 subs. And so things are moving right along with this, and I appreciate your support. If you've not subscribed, please do consider hitting the like, subscribe, and bell icon. Help me build the channel. And also, while you're at it, check out the show notes. There's a link to our Tabletop Tap Room Cafe Press store. We have a little bit of merch. We're trying to add more all the time. So, maybe there's something there to catch your interest, like the OSR for Life t-shirt. Here we have the Frontier Explorer number 21, summer of 2017. I've been going through some changes in my life. I've been doing a lot of traveling between states, and things were beginning to settle down a little bit for me, so I'm more heavily involved in this particular issue. And the quote on the cover is, "Just get on a spaceship and go." And of all people this quote come from, it's actually Shirley MacLaine. There's a longer quote, but this is the best part of it, and it just seemed to fit this particular issue. Now, the first article is the new player primer, and the new player primers, again, were all about helping the new player get up to speed, particularly with the alien species in Star Frontiers. So it's a little bit of a review of what's in the species write-up in the original rules, plus a review of some of the fan canon that has come along that's really good. Whatever I happen to think was pretty good, and not all of it's my material. A lot of it is, but not all of it is, because if somebody had a great idea, I'll be like, "Ooh, I really like that." So this is just a review, and like the previous new player primer in the previous issue for the Versk, this one is 1 page. So this is not a one sheet where it's 2 pages printed front and back on 1 page. No, it's literally 1 page. So you could put both player primers, new player primers for the Versk and the Dralasites on opposing sides of the same piece of paper and, hand it out. So that's that. It's just a really good, I think it's a really good resource, particularly if somebody's going, "I don't know what to do with these aliens. I don't know." Okay, not a problem. All you need is a little bit of information, and you can play one, and you will be fine. So the first deck plan in here, it's the best deck plan in here. It's done by Tom Stevens. It's the Assault Scout Swift class. You have some external images here. The Stiletto class on the left, that's the more classic Assault Scout design. The Swift class is 25% bigger. And so this has got more decks, and it's a thorough write-up with statistics, write-ups on the decks. You've got a nice cross-section design here. And even in this cross-section, they show you where the assault rockets are loaded with the launcher in the very nose of the ship. And the deck plans, I don't know what software he was using. You're about to get some deck plans that I did in Dungeony. And I had a love-hate relationship with Dungeony for years. It was a frustrating program to get past the learning curve. And, then there'd be times where I'd be beating my head against the program. So this, though, is the best deck plan in this particular issue, done by Tom Stevens. Now, what are the Rooksha? The Rooksha were an alien species introduced in a piece of fiction all the way back in Star Frontiersman number 4 by Bill Logan. Laura Mama looked at that and said, "Well, that's great. This is an interesting alien species, but they're impossible to use because there's no stats. There's no write-up on them." So she tackled that problem and did a bang-up job And I particularly love at the end of her article, you get what the scientists think, their hypothesis, their hypothesis is, and then what the Rooksha think. And so I love that she wrote this into this. I just thought absolutely fabulous. Now, here we go with the Pelican class troop transport. I thought we need a troop transport. This would be the kind of vessel that you might transport a company of mercenaries, so on and so forth. So it's, this is actually designed to be more for your mercenary type outfits, or the corporation needs to transport and land some mercenaries. So that's what this was. And so again, done in Dungenie, not my best work. But there is one feature here I want to go into. I want to actually camp on this for a second and preach. Okay. Elevator, ladder well, engineering chase. I think all spaceship designs should have these things. If the elevator breaks down, how do you get between decks? You need a ladder well. And from a practical game standpoint, you need multiple ways to access a deck. Otherwise, it's just a linear railroad. Get on the elevator, go to the next deck. Get on the elevator, go to the next deck. It's kind of boring, But when you have air vents and engineering chase, all the engineering chase is this is where they run the power lines, the water lines, the air vents, waste water from the toilets and the galley, the galley sink. All these things run, all of these services run through this engineering chase. There is open space in there, and it is possible for a player character, particularly a Drallasite, to crawl through there and access another deck on the sly. And so that was the idea. And, there's no access pictured here because I've just hand waved that you remove a wall panel and then you can access the engineering chase, right there. Just kneel down outside the elevator door, pull off a wall panel. So from a practical standpoint, these things facilitate multiple methods of accessing the decks. All right, there's pirates on the bridge. So I'm going to, my player character is going to open the engineering chase and crawl up and get up to the bridge. And while the pirates are distracted, maybe, there's an alarm going off. I'm going to use my laser scalpel to cut away the bolts, nuts, whatever's holding that panel in place, so I can pop the panel out and then shoot them with the gun from leaning out through the access hole. So these are the kinds of things I was thinking about, but from a game standpoint, they're practical. If you have a ship and it's any size at all, you need multiple elevators, you need ladder wells, you need engineering chases. I grouped them together on this particular design because the ship's kind of small. It's a hull size 5. So it's the size of a frigate. And, it's just, and even here, I put the escape pod. It's just a hatch of the floor. If you've got to do the, flush yourself out of the ship because it's blowing up, it's breaking up, you just lift the hatch, jump down in. I didn't have a good asset for representing escape pod. So, I just put a hatch and you jump down the hatch and off you go. So I don't like these designs. Dungenie was just a problem child for me, and I'm not a fan of it. Of course, they stopped supporting it anyways. So it's just old news. The Dungenie software is just old news. Campaign cartographer is newer, still supported. And maybe there's something else out there. I just was frustrated nonstop with this particular software. Oh, that's not a bad looking escape pod. Work pod. So then next up is the UPF Rescue Scout. And again, don't like this deck plan. Not a fan of my own work. But, kicking around the Dungeony software and, banging out a deck plan. And again, you see here, elevator, ladder well, engineering chase. And, and these things match up deck to deck to deck. I just duplicated that same bit of space deck to deck. Next up, we get Titan Rising. This is episode 14. So it's not as long running as the very back cover comic, but that one's coming to an end in this particular issue. So the next thing here is an adventure called the Station Eviction Incident. This is an adventure set up for introducing the Vim. And the Vim were a player character species introduced way back in the Star Frontiersman, in one of the early ones, 2, 3, 4, somewhere around there. And so this was a setup for it. I created a company, New Gen, doing genetics research. They're actually using illegal technology, and they're experimenting on the Vim. And one of the Vim individuals escapes. And it managed to get on a ship, and it got to the space station, and now it's hiding in the bowels of the space station, in the engineering chases, in the engineering ducts, and so on and so forth, Jeffrey tubes, that sort of thing. So this was predicated on that somebody's not paid the rent for their space that they rent in the space station, and the player characters have been hired to serve eviction notice. So it's a simple job. They go in there, and of course, problems and complications. And so that's, and I was experimenting with doing things up with this little format. And I don't know, it's a visual, I don't know if it works, but that was an experiment we were trying at that time. It was probably done in Dungeony software. And this here is, I found this. So there's footprints and handprints to be found in this space. The player characters find it, and they're like, oh, so these are weird looking handprints and footprints. I actually found these on the internet. These are the paw prints of a muskrat. And I thought these will fit the VIP. So this, just, cruising the internet, I found a nice clue that I could throw out. Kind of looks like this is what you would see from from a footprint or a handprint from a Vim character. So I kind of like that. And so you can check that out. Escort duty. Tom Stevens did a Nighthawks encounter, and he included my ships: a rescue scout, a Pelican troop transport. You've got Stiletto class assault scout and the Swift class assault scout, and they're taking on a corvette and a frigate. So pretty cool. You can play that on the Wargaming table. And then Eric Windsor is famous for doing the ecology of articles. The long-running character in his ecology of articles is Jurak Hangna. He's a Yazarian biologist, and he's got a human assistant, Dwayne, and they have a Versk assistant as well. These are all characters that turn up in the fiction connected to the ecology of articles. Well, this here is the 20th issue, 21st issue. So I think this is actually the 20th ecology of articles. And what Eric did here was, rather than just a new critter, he actually wrote up the Jurak Hangna Foundation Wildlife Preserve. So more or less what you have here is a zoo that you could use for an adventure locale, is basically the write-up you get with this. And so he's done some satellite maps here, and there's a representation with domes. So not a real great location map. You might still need to write that up, but you have a nice index, creatures from all different worlds, telling you where to go find them. Frontier FE is for Frontier Explorer. So the draw, Moobop, they list the home world as well, and the creature and its habitat. And so you got this great write-up with some GM notes. The Frontiers in miniature. I was always trying to, do a little Frontier thing, and this is just a paper craft. This is a cut and fold paper craft. I've been experimenting with cut and fold paper models, and so these were models I actually designed, some 3D looking shapes, and originally this particular shape I wasn't going to do much with it. I was just going to have it as just a shape, and I could throw it on the table and go, all right, that's a what you call it, or that's a thingamabob. And but I couldn't help myself, and I started adding some dowels and some 2-part epoxy resin to try to make the little metal joints that are where the dowels connect. And then I painted it up. You don't have a photo here of the painted issue, but the painted model, but painted it up so I could just throw it. And it's basically, it's a piece of scatter terrain. You can hide behind it, but also you could open that door and go down a ladder, and then we're in a sci-fi dungeon, if you will. And so it was just easy for me to throw it on the tabletop, and it's just a dungeon starter, and we switch over to a nice vinyl mat and draw out the thing. Although these days I subscribe to Professor Dungeon Master's Dungeon Pizza, aka Ultimate Dungeon Terrain. I like his particular style of doing locations with the Ultimate Dungeon Terrain. So instead of the vinyl mapping. So there's that. You can print that and do the cut and fold paper model yourself. One was a tent, and the other was just a cool looking sci-fi shape that you can throw on the table and use for almost anything, really. And then finally, we have a piece of fiction called Vectors of Regret by Edwin Cintron. Edwin Cintron writes the fiction in the Love and Atomic Rockets series. So you follow members of one family, not the same characters all the time, but members of one family and their history in the frontier. Gives you a view to the history, some of the high points of history of the frontier, a little bit here and there. Sometimes it's some of the early ones were just straight up adventure ideas you could totally steal and use it in your game, drop it on the player characters. So this is 3 pages, so it's quick and easy. And then the final Grimm's Guide, the end, part 2. So there you have it. Frontier Explorer, number 21 from summer of 2017. 3 deck plans. They're all serviceable. I'm not a fan of my own deck plans that are in here. But definitely the Swift class Assault Scout is a great deck plan. It's a bigger ship, more decks. So to me, it's a little more versatile than the classic Assault Scout deck plan. So great issue, a lot of fun. So this is Tom for Star Frontiers Gamer with FanZine Friday. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my subscribers. You guys are great. Please, also, if you have not subscribed, hit the like, subscribe, bell icon. Consider supporting us. Help us build the channel. And I will see you in the frontier.